Actually, my first experience going to a live event was with Mike Graham, and I was 15 years old, and that was when I actually got introduced to it to a point where Mike's dad was the promoter, Eddie Graham, right there in Tampa, Florida, and I went where everybody knew him everywhere we went. When we'd go to eat or something like that, people were coming up to him, asking for his autograph. He basically gave you that hero type image and everything, and so it kind of like drew me to him, because at that time my dad was a prisoner of war in Vietnam, and I might have been looking for a father figure too at the same time. I mean, you know, they were all patriotic guys also, and you know, my dad being a prisoner of war, me being without a dad, you know, they kind of like magnetized towards me. I was attracted to them, they were attracted to me, and I was always trying to do things to help out, like drive them places, pick them up at the airport, things like that. So friendships developed over time period. Don't just go out there and watch the match and look for the movement. Watch the actual wrestlers and see what they're doing that makes the audience react to them. Find out why the guy's in the main event and not on the first match. So as you progress through the night, you see the differences in the talent, the style, the charisma, the different things, the things that make up a wrestling match. And so, and I saw Jack Briscoe, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he does one jumping jack, puts a cigarette out, and goes out and wrestles for an hour straight. And I'm going, wow. I mean, I didn't smoke and didn't want to smoke, but it was the idea, that's a warm up there, buddy. The hard part was coming home, because I had my mother living at home, and I'd come home with map burns on my face, on my elbows. I'd come home with a black eye, maybe something, you know, out of character for me, and she'd go, I thought wrestling was fake. And I'd say, I thought it was too. Because it was like flat, boring, just baby face, you know, I'm going to do the best I can to give 100%, which was just real sappy, but at the same time, that was that era. You know, Muhammad Ali had just come into play there and started taking over the new concept of a babyface. Cocky, arrogant, but being able to back up what he said. Not just saying something and not doing it, but saying something and doing it. And that's when it started to evolve into a whole different idea for babyfaces. Yeah, and my first impression of Kevin was he was a suck ass. I mean, you know, he was so up Mike Graham's butt about everything. And I'd grown up with Mike, and I didn't feel like I had to do that. But Kevin, it was real obvious, you know. And Bill Dundee took a liking to me when I first came in there, you know, and he kept saying, you're going to have to change, you're going to have to change, you're too serious, you're too serious. And I remember wrestling Wayne Ferris, Honky Tonk Man, and throughout the whole match, he'd always say, do I owe you money? Do I owe you money? You tried to kill me out here. Do I owe you money? Young says, I'm not dropping the title. I ain't dropping it. And he goes, what are you going to do? And I says, I'm going to tell him I want 10 grand cash right now. Bring it in the room, put it in my pocket. I'll go out there. When we moved there, Jerry Jarrett lived in a small house on the lake. By the time we were done there, he lived on top of a mountain and owned the whole mountain in a mansion. And I used to say, that's the house the Fabs built up on that hill. I make the mistake of going, what? Like I was bowing up to Hawk. Well, Hawk thought I was questioning what he was going to do to the point where I wasn't going to do what he was going to do. So Hawk double-handed pushes me in the chest so hard, I flew off of my feet into the ropes, and as I came back, I tripped and fell. When I tripped and fell, I double leg dive Hawk. Oh, the shit was on then. I mean, you know, because Hawk thought we were shooting. And I wasn't. And I had spent enough time over Hawk's head that night to get a pilot's license, because every time he picked me up, he's looking at people, and I'm getting press slammed. And I remember getting press slammed, and I got slammed so hard that as I hit, I bounced right up to my feet, and I'm going, wow, tag Stan. And when Stan came in for the comeback, Hawk grounded him right away. No comeback at all, just started pummeling, boom, 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 boom. I said, you know, I've had it. I rolled out, I grabbed a chair, rolled back in, and I whacked Hawk in the back with the chair. He beat on my door that night, wanted to kill me in my hotel room. He was pounding on it. I told him, go away. I called security. I quit. I was supposed to work for Carlos, Stan and I, for 2 more nights. And I quit. We got then a fan one night. We were in Savannah, Georgia, and Jack Briscoe was the world champion. And I was standing back there beside him, and a fan walks up to the rope right there, and he says, hey, how do you get in this shit? And Jack Briscoe goes, what are you talking about? He says, I want to be a wrestler. How do I get in? And he goes, you challenge a wrestler? He goes, well, I'm challenging you. And I'm going, yeah, this is going to be awesome. And I was putting Eddie Graham above my dad in heroic kind of situations as a working wrestler and idolizing a man that, I thought was tough, that I thought was the man's man. And I have a thing about suicide, and I believe in my heart that everybody has a hard life to a certain degree. And Mike told me, he says, well, I'm going to commit suicide too. My dad committed suicide. My son committed suicide. They have two common denominators. They had me as a son and as a dad, so it must be my fault. I mean, it was just story after story I could tell about Eddie. And then my dad being a fighter pilot, on the top, Eddie'd be drunk and say, hey, you're old man. I remember doing a fighter's descent into Disney World, and I told Jimmy Hart at a store somewhere that I saw him out, and that I really wanted to try WWF sometime. And he goes, wow. So Vince says to me this time when I come up, he goes, Steve, did you see the movie Deliverance? And I go, yeah, I saw it. And he goes, I want you to be one of those guys. Well, when you've been a fabulous one just recently and all that, the first thing I'm thinking is, oh, you want me to be Burt Reynolds? And he goes, nah, I don't want you to be Burt Reynolds. I want you to be. And he wanted to know everything we were going to do and went out there. And I said, I don't have that good a memory. I said, I can't remember 15 minutes in a match and tell you what's going to happen now before we go out there. I said, just listen to me and let me take care of it. And I guess through the course of the match that we had together, he got his job. I know it's a long way to that town, and then when we got there, he goes, oh, I didn't think you guys would come either, and you're the only two that came. And I was in that family forever. I mean, Angelo and the whole family, the mom, Judy. I mean, I became part of the Poffo family from that day on. If you'd have told me in 1972 when I started in the wrestling business that I'd end up as a clown, my last guy, I told you, you're out of your mind. This business, now here's a guy like me that had been in everybody's territory. I'd worked in every kind of territory, all different places, all around the world. And I know all of these guys. I know them from the NWA, I know them from the WWF, I know them from the AWA. We're all the same, we're all wrestlers. But when I walked in the dressing rooms down there in the WCW, it was almost like a civil war. It was annoying. I go, yeah, right. You know what day this is, right? And he goes, no, what day is it? I said, it's April 1st. I said, this is bullshit, right? He goes, no, it's not bullshit. I said, well, you call me tomorrow and I'll believe the story, okay? You take on the office concept. You have to understand there's a difference between office workers as agents and talent. You are no longer wrestling talent. Now you're an authority figure. And if you're going to be an authority figure, you got to be at 100%. In other words, you can't be biased. And, it's like, don't do something in front of me that you don't want Vince McMahon to know about. Because then I'm going to pick up the phone and call him. But what I saw was a guy with an incredible work ethic. I mean, he wanted to do anything and everything and was never shy about volunteering time. And this was in his young age. Like a guy, he could have looked at me and said, hey, you never made it to my level, so how can you tell me what to be? He accepted my ability and my reputation and my experience level to at least say that maybe Steve's trying to help me, which I want. You're gone all the time. You're still gone. Your kids have grown up. You've missed their life growing up. Now you're having grandchildren. You're going to miss their life. And I went to John and told him, I said, I don't know what I can do, but I'm getting tired of being a road agent because I'm getting tired of going to the airport. And I'm on a fence post here because I had such a big part of their career that to continuously produce talent that might weed them out, I'm almost creating a scenario as where I made you and then I broke you. And I don't want to. I was a champion and I took the belt to a foreign country and was still able to entertain an audience and make it a very exciting match and a memorable one, not only to them but the people that watched it. And it gets me recognition to this day when I go there. Noted for hanging around the cops in the back of the arenas and talking to them because I admire law enforcement and stuff and what they do. And so I make friends with law enforcement, but they're practical jokers. And my best ribs have been with law enforcement. I had my grandma. Because the thrill you get as being a wrestler is uncomparable to anything. When you stand in the middle of the ring and the people are in a circumference audience that goes totally around you and they're screaming at you at the highest pitch, there's nothing else like that I could compare it to, and it's the biggest rush that I ever had in my life.